Hello, hey everybody, and welcome to the Grateful Dead. I'm sorry, the Deadheadland. I'm sorry, I get so distracted. The Deadheadland show. I should know what my own show is. My name's Happy Cat, and I've got some special guests for us this morning. We've got some folks from the Owsley Stanley Foundation, and they're here to talk to us about their newest release, Tim Buckley, the Merry-Go-Round, the Carousel. And I'd like to just bring on our first guest right away, and that's Hawk Simmons from the Owsley Stanley Foundation. Hi,
Hey,
Hawk. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you again.
Hey, it's good to see you. Yeah,
how you been?
Really good. It's funny because our last interview, that was like 6 months ago, but because I just played it recently, I feel like I just chatted with you real recently about that.
Just like yesterday.
Yeah, just yesterday. Well, really good to see you today, and thanks for making the time to be with us here. And just really happy to share about what you guys are doing at the Owsley Stanley Foundation and putting out Bears Sonic Journals. And I know that we originally just scheduled you, but you actually have another guest, a real special guest that's going to come on. So let you introduce him.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a real thrill to be able to do tandem interviews with somebody that Owsley introduced me to 31 years ago. I can't believe it's been 31 years, but Owsley said, "Hey, come up to a Dead show in Albany, New York. I want you to meet my son, Starfinder." And for the last 31 years, we've been friends and brothers, and got ourselves together with this crazy organization, the Owsley Stanley Foundation. It's a great pleasure to introduce my friend and brother and the president of OSF, Starfinder Stanley, Bear's son.
All right.
Greetings.
Well, welcome, Starfinder. Nice to meet you. I mean, I met you just a few minutes ago before we went on air, but welcome, and so glad to have you here and part of this. So
yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so just really briefly, let's tell the folks what the Owsley Stanley Foundation is and what your work is about.
Sure. Well, for those who may not know, my dad, who usually went by Bear, but also was known as Owsley, was the first sound man for the Grateful Dead. And when he started doing sound, he was an audiophile in a low fidelity world. So he was really trying to get the live sound to approach something that he would want in his living room. You went to big shows and everything was tinny and echoey and really low fidelity sound. So he started building sound systems. He actually used his home hi-fi system as his first setup with the Dead. They rapidly blew that up, so he had to rebuild it. But he started building sound systems and then started recording each show, trying to capture what the audience experienced at the show, so that he could listen back to it and improve the system. So he called the tapes his sonic journals. They were his working journal, his diary of the sound system. And early on, they would all go back to the hotel rooms after the shows, and he'd actually make the Dead listen to the sonic journals as well, because part of what he was trying to do was to make sure that what the audience was getting was what the band was trying to give them. So he wanted the band to listen, and he would say, this is what they got. Is this what you were trying to give them? Because if it's not, we need to work on this.
Jared called them the nightly postmortem. So Jerry Garcia described them as. And to this day, they still do it. We've heard from Mickey and from others that we were talking to Dave Schools, and he said, yeah, they still listen to the show after the show on the bus. So it's an interesting tradition that I think that Owsley and the Grateful Dead were very much in the vanguard. There just wasn't that much tape running at that time, and certainly not as much high quality tape.
Yeah. So when we so over time, he recorded, pretty much every act that ever played through his sound systems. And he developed a technique for miking the stage and for capturing his sonic journals, that, you know, his intent was to be as accurate as he could at capturing that audience experience. And as it turns out, if you mix great concert sound and you capture that on your recording, you have a great concert recording. So, you know, he ended up with about 1,300 reels of soundboard tapes of these sonic journals. And you know, he knew there was a lot of great music embedded in these tapes. And the problem is that, you know, tape doesn't last forever. So, you know, the tapes were aging, and he knew that he needed to get them onto a more permanent technology so that the music wasn't lost, because over time those little iron oxide particles will flake off the tape and it's gone. And so, you know, he was you know, waiting for the technology to mature. For a lot of years, the digitization wasn't where he felt it needed to be in order to warrant running the tapes, because every time you play the tape, you degrade it a little bit. So he was waiting, and the technology was starting to get there, but it was also super expensive. And so, you know, we had spoken, you know, in the years before he passed. You know, he was fairly certain he would live forever, but he allowed that if he didn't manage to do that, and he hadn't finished dealing with the tapes before he died, he expected that we would take care of them to his specifications, that you know, he you know, was confident that you know, we would do as he would with the tapes, which, you know, that's a pretty high bar.
Yeah.
So when he did pass, you know, we started the Owsley Stanley Foundation as a 501c3. So we're a nonprofit organization, a federally recognized charitable group. And you know, we started raising money from the community to preserve this irreplaceable treasure, that, you know, that this archive of recordings from this period in American musical history, from the San Francisco Bay Area music scene, and all of the different musicians that were coming through at that time, is just such an important part of our heritage. And so, you know, we were really warmed by the response from our greater community of music lovers, you know, recognizing the importance of this and helping support us. And you know, it's been 10 years now. We've been plugging away. And you know, as we preserve reels, that allows us to hear them, because we don't run tape until we're preserving it. And then when we hear the tapes, then we get to try to figure out which ones we're gonna be able to bring out, so that everybody else can enjoy them too. And it's a process. You know, Hawk can talk to you about that.
So a big part of what you're doing then is just the preservation of these. What I really like, and I remember from my earlier conversation with Hawk, is that you are funding this with the music itself by releasing the music out to the public. So you're not doing the typical, the Kickstarter or the GoFundMe or anything like that, but you're actually getting this music out as physical CDs and downloads and such into people's ears.
Yeah, I mean, we did, you know, start off with some fundraisers, and you know, Jack and Yorma from Hot Tuna helped us set up our first benefit show, which was our last benefit show. Yeah, but yeah, and we do hope to do more of those. But you know, COVID has certainly put a bit of a crimp in everybody's musical experiences for the last year or so. But the yeah, it's been great that once we got our seed money and got the transfer process started, by doing the Sonic Journals releases, not only could we bring the music to the public so that everybody can enjoy it, but it also helps fund the ongoing process. We're 100% volunteer run. Nobody at the foundation gets a cent from any of the work that we do. It's as Hawk says, often it's a labor of love. And you know, I'm really fortunate to have such an amazing team who put so many hours in and devote so much time and energy to honoring these recordings and presenting them. We work a lot on the liner notes, on the research behind what was going on with these musicians, and it's really important to us not only to present the music in it as high a quality form as we can, and we cut no corners when it comes to sonic excellence, but also to frame the event, the show, the musician, and the culture that it was happening in, so that you have that a fuller appreciation for what was going on. And as we've gone through our releases, this is our 7th release. It's hard to believe that we've come that far already. We got a long way to go. We've got 1,300 reels, but we've really tried to showcase the diversity of the music that was happening, that Bear was mixing and that was happening in the scene over the arc of these releases and continuing. So we're trying to tell the story of the musical scene and the time, as well as giving you guys these wonderful musical gems.
Yeah, and in an era when physical product is becoming increasingly rare, other than vinyl, we still remain committed to hard copies because we really view these as curated exhibits. We're not selling souvenirs, we're selling pieces of history that we sort of do our best to revisit and piece together. And part of the whole thesis for the foundation is the idea of preserving. Owsley is an incredibly diverse individual himself, and was into so many different things in the pursuit of quality in all of them. And there, you talk about the legacy of Owsley Stanley. There are many potential legacies that we could interpret, but our particular focus is to preserve his legacy as it's reflected in this incredible trove of recordings. And that part of what we're discovering along the way, both of us were born in 1970. Much of this music was recorded before we were born. The preservation process has reacquainted us with artists that we hadn't heard of, with things that we were discovering that the Bay Area knew about. Bands that were written up in the San Francisco Chronicle as being essential psychedelic bands of the period, and we'd never heard their names before. And so we sort of joke about no jam left behind, but it's really an ethos here that our favorite emails are when people write to us and say, "I've never heard of the artist on your newest release. It's awesome. I love it. Thank you." And the whole idea of discovering new bands for a new generation, or old bands for a new generation, or something that is ancient and yet fresh and new, is what we get most excited about. And it seems like there's a growing audience that is excited about it as well. And of course, while honoring the history, that means not sort of leaving the folks who've been there before behind, and hearing their stories, and collecting eyewitness accounts and talking to as many people as we can who are at the shows to try to build out a complete understanding of things that happened from before we were born. So it's and I think that's part of the mission. And these are, again, to emphasize, it's more than just the music. What we're trying to accomplish with each release is a curated product that can stand alone and then also work as part of a series that tries to convey the breadth and depth of the cultural swirl that was the Bay Area, and the circles in which Bear flowed in the 60s.
Well, these are great little time capsules. I mean, this is, and again, the packaging is beautiful, and there are nice liner notes in packages. I'm not sure if it's showing up properly with my green screen or not, but it is like very detailed. So it's a beautiful thing you're putting out here. I know I went onto your website after we first spoke last fall, and wanted to just see what was available. And I saw the Allman Brothers release that was on vinyl, and I'm a little bit of a vinyl collector now, or vinyl recollector. And so that one excited me, and I ordered it. And when it came in big, beautiful fold-out double album, and it really sounded fantastic. So that's the Allman Brothers. It's a band more people are familiar with, certainly, and you're exploring a lot of different avenues, though, not just the top bands or the bands that everybody's looking for. Ali Akbar Khan, who we discussed on the last release, I knew his name, and I had knew he was a big tabla guy, world music, but I wasn't really that familiar with him. So it was great to learn more, and actually to learn how much history he has here in Marin and the Bay Area as well. Now, Tim Buckley, your current release, again, another name that I know and maybe a lot of the other listeners would know and have heard of, but I wasn't really familiar with his music. I have to say, I'm a little older than you guys, but not much, but it just wasn't in my wheelhouse particularly. I've been enjoying this. I've had this now for a couple of weeks. You sent this out to me and listened to it a bunch of times, and it's I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And again, it's an artist I'm not super familiar with his catalog, so it's nice to be exposed to something new from back then, a little time capsule that's reaching out to me from the past. So can you tell us a bit about this recording and a bit about Tim Buckley as well?
Sure. Tim Buckley was an artist that for those that aren't familiar, he's got a very large, very devoted following. But I keep encountering folks in the Grateful Dead community that aren't as familiar with his work. So if you'll indulge a little bit of background, he was an artist that passed away at a very young age, 28 years old, in 1975. He had a very unique approach. He changed. You can't pin him down. He was historically sort of looked at, I think, as a quick gloss as a folk artist. But if you listen to this recording, this is more jazz than folk. There's some folk infusion and flavor in it, but it's more of a jazz album than it is a folk album. And I think that's sort of indicative of the way that he changed from album to album. I think he had 7 studio albums, and then I think there were 8 or 9 more that were live albums that came out. The first one was in 1991. So around the time that Starfinder and I were in college, there were no live Tim Buckley albums that you could pick up in the store. And I'd been familiar with all of his studio albums, but when I heard this recording from Owsley, it was like discovering a new Tim Buckley. I mean, it just hit my brain in such a sweet way, emphasizing Buckley's incredible commitment to improvisational art, his willingness to take risks on stage, using his voice as an instrument, improvising lyrics as he goes, the attention to detail of his band members that were so clued into his every move on the stage. It was it's a magnificent performance, and very uniquely recorded by Bear to give it an additional sort of 3-dimensional feel to it. And Starfinder can talk about that in a second. But when you put it all together, the sonics, the incredible performance, it is a great performance. And the fact that there are songs on here that even the Buckley verse had never heard before, because this is the only known live recording of it. And so that has sort of expanded the Buckley catalog, and we're thrilled to be a part of that. So all of that together, and along with the sonics, I think makes this a really special release. Starfinder, you want to talk about the unusual Owsley sound on this one?
Sure. Yeah. As Bear refined his craft, there were a bunch of stages along the way, and he would experiment constantly with every aspect of the sound system and every aspect of recording. Always trying to improve with every iteration. He was never satisfied with good enough. It always could be better, and so he was always trying new techniques. In this period, he was trying to really improve the clarity of the recordings. So he would when he mic'd the stage, he always used stereo microphones. So there'd be a pair set up for each sound input. And the recording was on a 2-track. And so you would think the intuitive way to deal with that would be to take the right hand mic from every source and put it in the right hand channel, and the left hand mic from every source and put it in the left hand channel, and then you have your stereo image. But he didn't do that. What he did was he would take the stereo source from each side of the stage and bring that to one track, and then the other side to the other track. So in this recording and in the recordings from this period, you have part of the band on one track and part of the band on the other track. And that creates a real sense of space, and it reduces how much interference there is between the different instruments on each track. When you play it back, you will hear that John Miller, the bass player, is on the right side, and Tim and his 12-string guitar on the left side. And Bear would argue that the best way to listen to these recordings, and honestly, he would argue the best way to listen to anything would be to take your speakers and put them next to each other. He was a real advocate for point source systems. So he wanted to create a contiguous sound wave that was emanating from the speakers. That there's stereo speakers. It's not summed to one speaker. You've got the two speakers, but by putting them next to each other, what you do is you create a contiguous bubble throughout the entire room where the sound does not interfere with each other, with the sound from each speaker doesn't interfere. With a conventional stereo setup, you put your right speaker on the right side of the room, your left speaker on the left side of the room, and you sit right in the middle. And the sound from the right speaker hits your right ear and your left ear at the same time that the sound from the left speaker hits your left ear and your right ear. And it gives you this illusion that it's coming from straight in front of you. And you can play with that with delays on the speakers. You can pan things right and left, and different bands use that when in their recording styles. But your brain is really good at taking very small delays in the amount of time that it takes for a sound to get to your right ear versus the amount of time that it takes for the sound to get to your left ear. And it gives you directional information. With your eyes closed, if you hear a noise, you can point at it. You know where it is. And that's because your brain takes the slight lag between those two ears and turns it into spatial information. And that's really important when you're considering amplifying sound, because when you take the same sound and you transmit it from two different locations, when it hits your ears, your brain is trying to resolve where it is. And if you're sitting on your couch and you've got your speakers split, that's right in the middle. But if you're somewhere else, instead of getting two sounds that resolve to two sum sounds, you get two sounds that resolve to four sounds. That's hard for your brain to deal with. Your brain's trying to figure out where it is, and it can't, and it jumbles it. And so, there's this common concert experience that I've had where if I go see a band that I don't know their music, I can't understand the words to their songs. Because that split stereo experience muddies everything. So Bear's solution, which eventually resulted in things like the wall of sound, was to create a contiguous point source system. And within that, within the wall of sound, every speaker was dedicated to something different. I mean, you separate out the less things each speaker has to do at once, the better it's going to be at doing them. So, like each string from Phil's bass would have its own speaker, right? It's not, so it's just doing that, and it can do it better than if it's got to do the whole band in one speaker. It's obviously not going to be able to do as good a job. But the entirety of the sound generation is contiguous, so that the wave that's produced from that sound system comes out all at the same time, and your ears it'll bounce off the ceiling and off the walls. You'll get all these echoes, and your brain can deal with that because that's all information about the space that you're in, the venue, the size, if it's big and cavernous, if it's small and intimate, your brain, gets that. But if you're taking the same sound and making it come from different places at the same time, your brain can't figure that out. And so that's part of the genius in the way that Bear recorded, was in capturing not just the music, but also a real sense of the space that the music happened in. And that's part of being in that audience, being in the the venue at the time. It's you called it a time capsule. It's a time machine. It puts you right there. So Bear would say, push your speakers together and experience it at its best. Even with a split system, though, this basically makes you feel like you're sitting on stage with the band, because you've got the bass is on your right side, Tim's on your left side, you're on stage. Even in your car, when you're listening to it right side, left side, because again, you can hear each side with both ears. It sums to, you're amongst the musicians. This is a very intimate experience. It's a bit weird if you're putting headphones on. That's the one thing about this era of Bear's recordings, is it's not an ideal headphone mix, because there's that isolation between your ears. You put the headphones on, it's all bass in the right ear, all Tim in the left ear. So it's a bit of a split brain experience. I've done it. I've listened to this thing lots of, not as many times as Hawk, I think. Nobody will ever listen to this as many times as Hawk.
Well, I do notice that just listening in here on my stereo system with my computer here, that the distinct left and right. And I know some older stereo recordings that I've heard, where they would do that. Different instruments would be out of different speakers as opposed to the mix. I for one kind of enjoy that because of the immersive experience. It feels like you were saying, like you're on stage with the musicians, or you're actually hearing things coming from different directions, as opposed to just like a homogenized mixed. It's a great experience, I think.
It's important to emphasize, though, that this was an experimental phase in Bear's development as a sound man, and these were things that we have. It's an important part of the provenance of Bear's tapes from 1968. He didn't keep doing it that way.
He found better and better ways.
He found better and better ways. So by 1970, you don't have this effect so much, and it becomes a quirky vestige of an earlier time period in his development.
It's interesting because you can't reverse it back to stereo. That's the thing. So he figured out other ways.
Well, you can reverse it, but it just muddies it up really quickly, and the compromises in our view are too great.
And in Bear's, that was the thing. Bear, with the Janis Joplin and Big Brother and the holding company from the Carousel Ballroom, which was recorded actually a week after the Tim Buckley show. That was an album that was put out by Sony the year after Bear died. As we were starting the foundation, we pulled together the liner notes for it and helped them get it out. But that was a recording that Bear had mastered with Paul Stubblebine probably 10 years before he died. And he was adamant that you could not remix this thing down to stereo. In fact, he said if they wouldn't let him put it out as the way it was recorded, he wasn't going to put it out. It was that important to him.
But that was also after experimenting with Paul Stubblebine and concluding for himself at the end of all those experiments that the sound did in fact degrade, and that the compromise and trade-off was not acceptable.
Sure, and, absolutely. It wasn't arbitrary.
Yeah, and we do the same thing and did the same thing on this Tim Buckley. We tried things on Tim Buckley to make the sound like what most of the audience is used to hearing. And in every case, we tried things that the technology didn't exist when Bear tried it with the Janis tapes. And in each case, the trade-off and the compromise was too great. And so we came back to the native mix.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now this release, like all of your other releases, you go to the artist or the estate of the artist and you get approval for this, right? So who's ever representing Tim Buckley now gave the thumbs up on this release?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of the ethos of the Owsley Stanley Foundation. Bear was a huge advocate for artists' rights. And so, he felt it was very important that artists be fairly compensated for their work. He did not like bootlegging. He was, he really had a strong feeling of patronage towards musicians. So that's important for us to persist with it in the foundation. Nothing gets released without the full buy-in of the artists on the album.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's great. That's really great. And let me see what else. So this again is from the Carousel Ballroom. Tim Buckley, when did he pass away?
1975.
1975.
28
okay.
years old. Yeah.
Yeah. So very. But this is kind of like at the peak of his performing time. Then, I mean.
Well, he went through so many changes. It's hard to know with Tim Buckley. You talk to 10 different Tim Buckley fans, and they'll tell you they favor a different era. Much like another band that we might all be familiar with. But
favorites.
Yeah, no, I mean, I particularly love this era. He was moving into a jazzy phase. He had just sort of met two incredible jazz musicians, David Friedman on the vibes and John Miller on the bass. And, it was a really good mix of folks. And John Miller's an interesting character that I don't think gets enough attention. He wasn't on my radar at all. But then when you look at who he's played with, he describes himself as a blue collar yeoman's bass player, but he was also the musical director for Leonard Cohen. He played with Madonna. He played with Michael Jackson. He played with Mose Allison. He played with Frank Sinatra. Played with Bob Dylan. He played with Ornette Coleman. I mean, his resume is spectacular.
And but when he was 100 Broadway shows, yeah.
When he was in college, there was the Canterbury Cafe, I think it was called, in Michigan, a pretty famous location where a lot of major stars have performed. But he would bring his double bass to the sound check, and he would sort of sneak up on stage while the bands were doing that. He'd listen for a little bit, see if, will my bass match what they're trying to do? And he would come up on stage and play with them. And that's how he met Tim. He sort of slid in, in the second number during the sound check. And they turned and they looked and wow, that sounds really good. Why don't you stay for the show? And so that's how John Miller met Tim. And in John's words, and this is all in the liner notes, he told us, when I first heard Tim, I thought, Jesus, man, this is where I live. And, that's, you can hear it on these tapes. Tim's sound was made for John Miller to explore his bass. And the interplay between the voice and the bass are just stunning. And so going back to the sort of question about the era, this particular era, this is the lineup essentially without, unfortunately, Lee Underwood, the guitar player, is missing from this lineup, but it's the Blue Afternoon, Happy Sad lineup. And in fact, they were out here on the West Coast to do the studio recordings that week. So they played at the Carousel. And then if my information is correct from the Buckleyverse, they went right into the studio afterwards and started to lay down those tracks.
Yeah, and I mean, this recording too is quite unique in how much the bass is featured. So you really get to immerse yourself in the interplay, that dance between John and Tim. Bear was a big fan of the bass, and so we're sure that when he saw that big double bass, he went and mic'd it up well, and made sure it was prominent on his mix. And so that really gives an element to this recording that is very distinctly different from all the other Buckley recordings that we've heard. That as I think as Hawk phrased it, that nice round bottom. Bear was fond of a nice round bottom.
Well, that's a great one. It's,
who among us?
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. So, okay, and so this was recorded over 2 nights, and I assume that you took the best of the shows to put onto this release.
That's all.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, one thing about Bear's sonic journals, that Bear was also very very emphatic about, was that they are not just things to be chopped up and remixed and made into best ofs. They are the ability to experience the show. And that was a real important part of the magic for him. Was it's not just music, it's the capturing of the event. And so for him, it was really important that people get the opportunity to experience the entire Sonic Journal as a Sonic Journal. So for example, that Allman Brothers you were talking about was a compilation. There were 3 nights of shows that were done. This was early Allman Brothers, right? It was they were maybe 11 months old. Dead had never played with them before. Bear hadn't seen them play live. And so, his Sonic Journals of those shows, didn't anticipate real swaps, right? You think, oh, I got 10 minutes left on the tape. They're starting this Mountain Jam thing. I should be good, right? No. So unfortunately, each of the shows has these jarring dropouts where the tape runs out. And Bear's got to change the tape. And sometimes he would have 2 tape machines running so that he would have the coverage when there was a tape swap, but he wasn't anticipating that at that time. So but so when they first did that album, Bear did that with the Allman Brothers before he died, and the compromise was spliced together a complete representation of the show using most of one show and parts of the other ones to create a more contiguous concert experience. And Bear was willing to do it, but it frustrated him, and he really he felt like there was a compromise. And so when we brought that out as one of our Sonic Journals, we went back to the original tapes. We retransferred them using more modern technology. We had Jeffrey Norman go back and recreate that original compilation using his notes from the first time around with the new transfers. But we also mastered up all 3 nights, and we created the deluxe version that has the compilation, so you can get that full concert experience without having the tape run out. But also each night, as much as we have, so that people could experience what it was like to see these shows. We have the first 3 in memory of Elizabeth Reed live recordings ever captured. The song was less than a month old. They were just working it out. And that's the sort of stuff that the Sonic Journals has, and to be able to experience it like the audience did, it is really special.
Yeah, I think that's great to and especially to put it into the context of where the band was in their career, especially on a song like Elizabeth Reed that we all know that jam so well, but to hear it brand new like that when it's I've always been a fan of a lot of artists' early work, even if it's a little raw, because you can see the seed of the creativity within it. Like, I like the old Grateful Dead, their first record, and the early stuff. And, I could say the same for a lot of bands. Even if the first album's rough, there's that rawness in it.
That's
where something came from.
That's what we were trying for with our Dawn of the New Riders. I mean, that's a 5-disc set of the earliest jam sessions, before they even figured out what to call themselves. They were jokingly, introduced themselves as the Murdering Punks for one show. I mean, we could have gone even earlier. We had the first Jerry and Marmaduke in the living room rehearsal.
Wow.
But
see, there's part of me that goes, I just want to hear that just to hear it.
Yeah. I mean that tape we've got about 15 reels of them rehearsing, and we've got their first performances in the Menlo Underground.
Wow, that's great stuff.
I will say this: if you think Dawn of the New Riders is raw,
well, there's that balance between presenting the history, and music nuts, love that history, love that the integration of that. And
by the way, we are music nuts. I think
yes.
It's safe to say the three of us are all music nuts.
Right. We're not putting anybody down. We're inclusive.
No. But for wider release, sometimes people are like, well, this he's a little out of key, and like, well, you gotta.
I mean, but this was a puzzle piece that was missing from the board. There were no New Riders recordings from this era, let alone the first one where they introduced themselves as the Murdering Punks at the Bear's Lair, appropriately, with Bear at the soundboard
on Jerry's birthday.
On Jerry's birthday. That's right. On Jerry's birthday.
Murdering Punks. Yeah. That's like hilarious. That's what they went by.
I mean, so it's I would take that history any day. And even if the sound is a little lopsided and Jerry's a little heavy on the pedal steel, but you get to see how his mind worked on a new instrument for him, relatively new instrument for him.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those solos, the endless creativity that he brought to that instrument, as he obviously did to his guitar. But it's like, how do you value that? Like, would you rather not have that? Even if it's not perfect, even if it's warts and all. I mean, it's, I think for people who were aware of this period in the New Riders development, these are all gems. Every one of these tracks, including several tracks that have never appeared on a New Riders album. And the whole sort of, again, the thesis for that project was, let's show a band come together over its first 11 months. From the first time they called themselves the New Riders until they were opening for the Dead at the Fillmore West in June 1970. And again, from there,
for fans of a band, that history is great. And these releases are really for people that are like big fans of music nuts, as you say, or there's a certain collector taper mentality that I know I share, where I like it all, warts and all. I love to hear the early stuff. I like to hear the mistakes, and I like to see how it evolves. So that's what's great. You have 7 releases now, right, with the series of Bear Sonic Journals.
We do.
So, and they're all still available. These are things people can go on the website. They can buy the CDs or the downloads or the vinyl. Some of them on vinyl.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really try to make sure that we keep everything available. That's part of our philosophy is that nothing goes out of print.
Okay.
If we can help it. Sometimes there are manufacturing glitches and things, but another one, the Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen. That's a great band. That a lot of people haven't heard of, or have heard of but haven't heard. Amazing musicians, a lot of fun. That was a really fun project to put together. And because we knew that we were trying to build an audience, we had 7 shows of Commander Cody. So what we did was we did one Sonic Journal, and then we did do. So sometimes we try to compromise. We hew to our ideals, but we also try to compromise to draw people in. We did a bit of a best of excerpts from some of the other shows for the second disc, so it's a 2-disc set. But again, to Bear's standards, we mastered all 7 nights, and we put them up for high res digital downloads. So. We always want to give people the option of going to the show, of experiencing that full Sonic Journal. So the Commander Cody is definitely one that's if you don't know Commander Cody, that's a really fun listen. It's a good one. It gets stuck in my CD player. I go to eject it. I'm like, oh, I'll listen to it one more time. Of course, I'm unusual in that I still have a CD player for things to get stuck in.
My car, I just got a new used car, and I have a CD player and a cassette deck, and then somebody actually gave me a box of old Dead tapes, which of course I used to have lots of them, and I don't have any anymore. It's been so fun to just kind of randomly pick something and pop it in, and the same kind of thing. I'm delving into a little piece of history, actually multiple layers of history, because it's somebody's tape they recorded in the 80s maybe, but it's also a recording of a 70s show. So but it's that little time travel aspect is so fun. And I remember when I was first getting into Grateful Dead music and discovered taper culture, and it was like so exciting that it's like, wow, I can get transported back to this place or that place. And
that elusive, that super frustrating unlabeled tape that it's like, where was this? What was this?
And I have a friend who's the guitar player in a current band, and he plays a lot of Grateful Dead music, and he never saw the Grateful Dead, and it wasn't really his thing before he got kind of pulled into this music. And he was talking about how he doesn't always get the experience or why Deadheads are so into something a certain way or like to hear the same song over and over. And he said, I've listened to a lot of Grateful Dead and I like it, but I haven't quite gotten that experience. And I actually suggested him, like, why don't you come over sometime? We'll pick something we've got on DVD, the full show, and let's treat it as a show. We'll get high, we'll turn off the lights, we'll play the first set. The second set, we'll take a little break, we'll get higher, we'll put the second set in, and let's like have a show experience. We'll turn off the lights, dance in the living room, but give yourself the chance to be there, and I think you'll connect more. And these CDs in your collection, or these recordings in your collection, really give people that opportunity with so much more than just the Grateful Dead. And as much as we crave that Grateful Dead thing, there is so much more out there. There's so many other flavors and so many other bands out there. So it's great to explore this. And one of the things that you have such a diverse collection of recordings here.
Yeah. There's over 80 artists in the archive. So we're scratching the surface here, but we've got a lot more in store. That's we've been working away. We've got the next two are queued up. We're actually this is unusual that this summer we're going to have two releases back to back. Usually we space them out a bit, but the manufacturing deadlines hit at a certain point. So that's going to be exciting. It's going to be a busy summer for the foundation. And then, we've got, a half dozen more in various stages in the queue. So we're plugging away.
Well, very good. Very exciting. And so for more information and of course to purchase these things, people can go to the Owsley Stanley Foundation.org. And the website also just has a lot of information on it. I mean, you're reading about all the releases and stuff. That's very good. And like we said, everything you guys have mentioned is available there.
Yeah, we're in the pre-release period for the Tim Buckley, so you can get it in your hands right away if you order it on our website. I think the general release date is what, June
4th.
June 4th.
Okay.
But,
and then you said general release, so that'll be available everywhere, Amazon or local brick and mortar stores, possibly, etc.
Absolutely. Yep.
We love indie stores. Really like to support indie stores and work with our distributors to get them there. So
that's awesome. Well, I encourage anybody, I used to work in record stores, so if you can actually go to a record store and buy something, that's fantastic. You're supporting local business and you're supporting an important cultural institution. If you are going to buy it online, buy it directly from the Owsley Stanley Foundation. That's my recommendation.
We appreciate that.
Couple quick notes about it, because I know that it's unusual that we do this sort of pre-release exclusive. This is unusual because, as we said, we include the entire show. There were 2 songs that couldn't fit on the CD. Those will all be available in digital format, both high res and in lower res downloads. Those won't be available until June 4th. For everybody who bought the CD, those 2 tracks will be available for free from the Tim Buckley archive site, but that won't be until June 4th as well. So we've been, because there's that note in the liner notes, getting a lot of questions about that. So,
we've lost Hawk.
You just froze. Let
Hawk on Ice. Oh, there he's back. Oh, now I can't hear
There
him.
you go. We lost you a little there. Here, let me take you off and bring you back. Does that help? Hi, Hawk. Can we hear you?
Hey.
There you go. We lost you just for a second there.
I can only imagine the face I had when I was
frozen in amber.
Frozen, yeah. No, well, I just kept talking and talking. I didn't even realize I was frozen.
Yeah.
What was the last thing you heard?
You were saying that we were getting questions about the 2 download tracks.
Yeah, they will be available on the Tim Buckley Archive site. For those who bought the CD, those tracks will be available for free as downloads from the Tim Buckley Archive site on June 4th. Those tracks will be included where they appear in the concert for downloads on the June 4th street date. So all digital except for the CDs, of course. We'll have those 2 extra songs.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you both so much for coming on and sharing about this. And definitely encourage people to go out and explore. This is a great album. Like I said, I wasn't very familiar with Tim Buckley, but I've been enjoying it a lot. His vocals just, it took me a little bit, and then it's just like they really get you. They're like deep and like hit you in the gut. So
yeah. They say he had a 4-octave vocal range, and looking online, I found a website that tracked it to 5.5 octaves. So we on this release worked with some classical musician friends of mine, including an opera singer, and we tracked it at 2.5 octaves on this release, with the lowest note coming in at the very last note on the final medley.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, they're very resonant. That's deep.
Yeah, Tim's artistry was pretty wide. He had the pipes as an unparalleled instrument, and his guitar playing, but also his lyrical vamping was really quite pronounced. Hawk, you should talk about that a bit.
Where to begin? I mean, I'll just talk about my favorite song on the release, which is "I Don't Need It to Rain," which is a song that appeared on Venice Mating Call and Copenhagen Tapes, both live releases. This one sounds completely different than those. This is far more blues oriented. They're all sort of moody in their way because of the subject matter, but it's a song about sexual tension, essentially, longing and release. And in this case, the release is almost like a religious experience, and the way he sings harks to a sort of gospel tent revival atmosphere of, going down to the river, gonna swim in the water and cleanse my soul in his frustration. And it just builds in intensity, and it's completely like the magic comes from these improvised choruses that he comes back to about jumping in the river, swim in the water, cleanse my soul. Just really moving stuff.
Oh, great.
And then the title of the album is talking about this this unique medley that Tim did, and there's actually also two tracks that are new songs that have never been recorded before.
So they're only on, they're only on this release. They've never been released in any other.
They didn't even have a name.
Wow.
Yeah, Tim Buckley's lyricist Larry Beckett from back in the day, high school friend of Tim Buckley, wrote with him and played with him in some of his earliest band. Named the songs for us. Came up with names that he thought that Tim would approve, and identified "Blues Love" as a song that he had heard him play at the Troubadour in 1965 or 69 in LA, and confirmed that it had never been recorded and never appeared on an album. So that's pretty special.
So for the hardcore Tim Buckley aficionados out there, then this is a treat. An extra treat, because it's something new. That's great. Yeah,
it's an extra treat for them, and again, that's what we hope, that the devoted Tim Buckley fan will find something new, but also the uninitiated will find something, and on its own, regardless of that sort of unique discovery. The song is called "Blues Love," and it's it's a killer song. It's a great song.
Right. Well, now after having spoken with you, I'm going to go back and listen to this again today with like a whole, because now I have more perspective and more information on this. So that's great.
Oh, I got one more for you though. You got to listen to Merry-Go-Round, which is what Starfinder was alluding to.
Right.
Merry-Go-Round is a Fred Neil song. And in particular, what Fred Neil did with that song was he took Langston Hughes' poem, called Merry-Go-Round, and the line in it is, "Where's the Jim Crow section on this merry-go-round? I just can't find the back. Where's the Jim Crow section on this merry-go-round for a boy who's black?" A striking, simple poem that packs a massive punch and is incredibly timely right now as we sort of see the rise of Jim Crow again, with certain states trying to pass certain laws to keep people from voting. And in this case, Fred Neil mashes that song up with Leadbelly's "In the Pines," which a lot of folks are familiar with. "In the Pines, where the sun never shines," and it asks the question, black girl, where did you sleep last night?" So taking the two of those songs and putting them together as Fred Neil did is one thing. Buckley then takes it to a different level with his improv. And so when you re-listen, check out the improvised verse. So first he starts off with asking where the white girl slept last night. And then he improvises an entire verse on where the black girl slept by contrast. And then he, as that builds in intensity, he then moves back into the chorus of "Where's the Jim Crow section on the merry-go-round?" And when he hits that chorus and his voice goes up the register and shrieks out the pain and the anguish and the absurdity of that chorus, I mean, it just gives you goosebumps, and it's so powerful. And to listen to it and imagine hearing it in 1968 and to listen to it today with what's going on, there's an additional resonance, let's say.
Absolutely. Thank you for that context. That's, I might not have known that otherwise. And yeah, it's great. That's really great to know, and makes it all the more interesting for sure. Yeah. All righty. So you guys have some new releases that'll be coming up soon, towards the end of the summer, I guess, is when we should be looking for some news from you. Happy to have you back if you want to talk about the next thing that comes out. I mean, this is a very exciting thing, and just to also see where you're going with the 1,300 recordings from Bear. I mean, that's right there. That's just amazing that they exist, and I think it's very important that you're preserving them and sharing them.
Yeah, we'd love to come back. Not too much longer to wait for the next one.
And, we appreciate your attention.
My pleasure. All right, and thanks so much again for being here today. So have a great day. Hawk, where are you at?
I'm based in Pittsburgh. I'm Pennsylvania.
You're in Pennsylvania, and Starfinder, you are where?
I'm just north of you. You're in San Rafael, right? I'm up in West Sonoma County.
Oh, okay. Oh, very good, very good. Okay, well, I hope to bump into you sometime, and nice to chat with you both this morning. And you guys have a really wonderful day. All right,
you too.
Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks. And thank you all for tuning in today on Deadhead Land for this interview with these lovely gentlemen about this amazing foundation and the great music they're doing. Again, the Owsley Stanley Foundation.org for more information, to make a donation, or to buy any of the music that we've been speaking about. I did want to tell you all out there in Deadhead Land that we have a very special concert actually up in Sonoma tonight, the Tree of Life Foundation concert, and there's still just a few tickets left for that. All sorts of great musicians, Elliot Peck and Alex Nelson, Jackie Green, Graham Lesh, Brian Lesh, who hasn't performed in a while, and perhaps some special guests and all sorts of other people. So that's for a very good organization, the Tree of Life, and that's tonight. So for those of you in the Bay Area, that's the happening concert to go to tonight. Everybody else, we're going to bring you more entertainment here on Deadhead Land coming up on Monday with some of our regular shows. David Gans, Scott Law, possibly Stu Allen on Monday for what happens to be Bob Dylan's 80th birthday on Monday as well. So thanks for tuning in to Deadhead Land. Thanks for all your support. And we'll see you real soon. I'm Happy Cat, and you're not. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.